Taiwan announced 13 local cases on Tuesday, including a pair of preschoolers with an unknown source of infection. The children are sisters who live in Taoyuan's Bade district. They were taken to a doctor after developing COVID symptoms.
The city is doubling down on its investigation to determine how they were infected. Other cases reported Tuesday include 3 in Kaohsiung, 2 in Tainan, and 1 in New Taipei.
It's early in the morning and disinfection is underway near this preschool in Taoyuan's Bade district. 2 students at the preschool were recently diagnosed with COVID. Their source of infection is unclear.
对这个姐妹，那家庭生活非常单纯。
These 2 sisters have a very simple family life. They don't have much recent activity in the community, so we have to more closely investigate the possible sources of infection.
Another case with an unknown infection source was a man in his 50s from Taoyuan's Longtan district. He got tested after developing COVID symptoms.
隔了2天也产生症状。
2 days later, he developed symptoms and tested positive with a home test kit on January 24th. He then went for a test at a hospital and was diagnosed with the disease with a CT value of 22.4. 18 people have been listed as contacts in the first round of contact tracing.
So far, 102 workers at the Far Glory Free Trade Zone in Taoyuan have been diagnosed with COVID. In a second round of testing on Tuesday, no additional cases were added to the cluster. Earlier this month, workers at the trade zone's value-added park were put in isolation and operations at the park were suspended.
雅旭电脑的员工
Workers at ASCII Computer Corporation at an Ingracies Technology are going through a second round of testing. We want all employees to get tested a second time. We're hoping that more testing and more extensive testing, including this round of testing, will help us get back down to 0 COVID cases.
3 of Tuesday's local infections were in Kaohsiung. All of them were connected to a cluster at the city's port. Officials now believe that the origin of the cluster was an imported case.
是属于境外移入的个案。
The first case was an imported COVID case that gave the virus to the first wave of infected locals. What we are seeing now is the contacts of those locals getting diagnosed. That's the second wave of infection.
Genetic sequencing results have come out for a student at National Kaohsiung University of Science and Technology who was diagnosed last week. It's the same substrain of Omicron as other cases linked back to Kaohsiung Port. Authorities are investigating how the student became infected. Meanwhile, nearby Tainan saw its first local cases in 7 months. 2 people were diagnosed. One was infected at a gathering with friends and family from Kaohsiung. The other case was a woman infected by her granddaughter who had recently returned from overseas.
70岁的阿嬷去照顾12岁的孙女儿。
The 70-year-old grandmother was looking after her 12-year-old granddaughter. There's nothing illegal about that, but it was how the grandmother was infected by the granddaughter.
Over in New Taipei, 1 new case was detected. This was a man in his 50s, a client of an infected real estate agent.
昨天再查出来，在他这个胸是一位房仲。
It was discovered yesterday that the real estate agent's client had gone with the agent to view a house. This client has also been diagnosed.
The infected client lives in Banqiao, New Taipei, and works in Taipei City. He commutes to work by metro and has had recent activity at Taipei Main Station and the Taipei 101 MRT station.